Hi, I'm Father Jim Martin. I'm a Jesuit priest and editor-at-large at America Media in New York City. But the thing I'm most proud of is that from 1992 to 1994, I worked in Nairobi, Kenya with the Jesuit Refugee Service, and it was truly, I can say, the best job I've ever had and one of the greatest experiences of my life. So I'm very happy to be with you today. So my brothers and sisters, let us pray. Loving God, in His time on earth, your Son asked us to welcome the stranger. Jesus told us that whenever we did this, we would be welcoming Him. And so in JRS, we welcome strangers all over the world. But then something happens. They are no longer strangers to us. They're our friends. In 1980, you gave your servant Pedro Arupe a beautiful idea, God. There are Jesuits all over the world, and there are refugees all over the world. So why not bring them together? Since then, for 40 years, God, you have allowed us to participate in this beautiful ministry, a ministry that now includes lay men and lay women, as well as clergy and religious from all over the world. Loving God, we ask you to continue to bless our work. Send down your Spirit to inspire us to do even more for our brothers and sisters who are refugees, migrants, and internally displaced persons. And in doing so, help us to encounter your Son, to care for him, to advocate for him, and to love him. Amen.
There are some crises that threaten the very existence of our humanity on this planet. One is the refugee situation. They're all the children of God and are fellow human beings in circumstances which are often unimaginable to us. From the beginning, Jesuit Refugee Service was founded to accompany, serve, and advocate for refugees worldwide. We offer food, shelter, clothing, but above all, education. There is a Jesuit Refugee Service because a great, charismatic, loving man, Father Pedro Arupe, created it. Pedro Arupe spent most of his active Jesuit life in Asia.
A group of Jesuits who were teaching in Hiroshima witnessed and survived the explosion.
When the bomb was dropped, he took the Jesuit novices immediately into the streets of Hiroshima to care for the victims. And then he was in Southeast Asia and saw what was happening to the Vietnamese boat people. This was after the Vietnam War. There was great internal division in Vietnam with the dominance of the Communist Party from the north. They were fleeing persecution. He was horrified and decided that the Society of Jesus had to respond in some way. So he immediately went back to Rome and began to write to the Jesuit provincials around the world to ask them for support to serve these people.
Today, within world needs are people completely devoted, unselfish, working for the others. We have a tremendous responsibility to adapt our spirituality to the real needs of today.
The mission grew in response to the humanitarian crisis, which unfortunately kept growing and has grown to an unparalleled point today. We began in Southeast Asia. Soon it was extending to southern India. We were then in northern Africa, in the Middle East, Central America. We have a reputation for going where there is a need. When Father Arupe founded Jesuit Refugee Service, there were estimated 6 million refugees and 4 to 5 million internally displaced people. There are now 80 million. What we hope to do is not just to help, but be with people rebuilding their lives. After 40 years, we are now working in over 56 different countries and serving 800,000 refugees. They are our brothers and sisters. God is love and has created us to be loving together. You can't be a believer without caring for justice. Home is where we all begin and what we want all people to find.
Tonight you'll hear passages from Danielle Vella's book, Dying to Live, Stories from Refugees on the Road to Freedom. Danielle is the Director of International Reconciliation Programs for JRS. Her book is full of powerful narratives in which people forced to flee their homes tell their own stories in their own words. In many cases, these are stories of people who can't speak out themselves for many reasons. We deeply respect that, so tonight, we've asked friends of JRS to help lift up these voices and give these stories life. It's my pleasure to introduce the first reader, Olympian and advocate Katie Ledecky.
Thank you, Joan, and hello to everyone watching tonight. I want to congratulate JRS for 40 years of service. For my entire life, you have been serving refugees and displaced people. I competed at the 2012 and 2016 Olympic Games. And at the 2016 Games, I competed alongside the first ever team of refugee Olympic athletes. At those Olympics, there were 10 athletes representing almost 70 million refugees and displaced people from around the world. Their stories of resiliency were an inspiration to me. Dying to Live is a book filled with stories like theirs, and tonight I'm honored to share one of those stories with you. This reading is from the first part of the book, called Flight, and it is titled Killed for Nothing. By the end of 2019, almost 80 million people have fled their homes. That's one person forced to flee the person's home every 3 seconds, fleeing violence and terror, persecution, and conflict. This is Safia's story of fleeing. Many people left their homes, never to return, when the war arrived on their doorstep. Safia, who lived in a neighborhood on the southern outskirts of Damascus, tells her story. In 2012, fierce fighting in the thick of the district's residential areas forced some 400,000 people to run away in the space of a few days. Safia was one of them. One day, the entire neighborhood was bombed, she said. I ran out of our home, and suddenly I was stepping on dead bodies in the street. People were calling us to go on vans to leave. Then the death of Samir, her neighbor's son. Samir was hit. His mother was crying and holding him as he fell. We were calling her to come to the van. She was crying and screaming. I can't forget this. Samir was killed for nothing. He was so young, just a very nice boy. Everyone loved him. Those bodies on the ground, when I rushed out of the house, were the first I had ever seen. I was shocked, for myself and for my children, who saw it too. I couldn't sleep for ages after that. The van took Safia and the others to a school in the nearby district, where they stayed for a few days, until the food ran out. Safia, her husband, and their 4 children then left and started walking, without any other aim except the vague intent to reach Damascus. When Safia could take no more, she went to knock at the first store she came across. Safia said, I had no idea who lived there. I told them my daughter was hungry. They invited us inside, asked us where we had come from and what happened, and they gave us food. They took nothing from us, no money. They were so good to us. And when someone does this, you never forget.
I'd like to introduce Salama Africa, a dance crew and arts organization run entirely by refugees from the Dzaleka refugee camp in Malawi. Salama is an Afro-Arabic word meaning peace and tranquility, which they hope to share by empowering the talent of refugee youth through art. At JRS, we support recreational activities like Salama Africa as part of our mental health and psychosocial support programs. Dance, painting, sports, and music are some of the ways we accompany refugees on a journey of hope and healing. JRS is proud to support Salama Africa and invest in the talent of refugees, and I am so happy to present this performance tonight.
Service for us is any basic need for the people to have a healthy and a safe life. Now, more than ever, the people, the refugees, they need someone to stand by them and to walk with them so that they can heal, learn, and to determine their own future. We started in Lebanon in 2012. We serve almost 10,000 refugees per year. Currently, we have 4 physical locations. We have the mental health program, the social center, and home visit team.
السلام عليكم. عنده بحصة. والله إيه الحمد لله على السلامة.
We provide life skills, vocation training courses for them to be able to preserve their dignity. In our schools, we are providing them a safe environment so that they can live their childhood. If they do not have access to education, you have a lost generation. Education is their only way to have a better future. Even with everything going on in Lebanon, the Beirut blast, the COVID-19 economic situation, the lockdown in the country, this did not stop us. We never stopped engaging students in education. We never stopped providing them with food basket and hygiene kits. You see a big impact on the life of the people. In JRS, they feel safe at home. They feel that they are part of this family. They share their happy moments, they share their concerns. For you to share these things, it means that you trust the person that is in front of you. And we will do anything possible so that we continue building this trust and not to lose it. And this is what makes JRS continue after these long years. You can knock on our door and you will always find us there. And whatever we're doing in JRS, in Lebanon, we're doing in the other 56 countries around the world. I can tell you what I learned from refugees. I learned hope. They always have a smile on their face. It tells me that what we're doing is important. After all, our main focus is to accompany the people so that they do not feel that they are alone.
Since 2016, Filippo Grandi has served as the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, leading a global organization dedicated to saving lives, protecting rights, and building a better future for refugees, displaced communities, and stateless people everywhere. Not only is High Commissioner Grandi our partner on projects around the world, he is also a friend who has walked with us for a long time. One of his first jobs was with JRS in Southeast Asia. I'm so glad he was able to send us this message. Please welcome the Honorable Filippo Grandi.
It was the summer of 1987 when, thanks to an invitation by Father Mark Raper, whom many of you know, I'm sure, I volunteered for the Jesuit Refugee Service and one of its local partner organizations in the town of Aranya Pratet in eastern Thailand, where hundreds of thousands of Cambodian refugees were living in camps scattered along the border. I was tasked with the job of participating in what we called, a bit pompously, to tell you the truth, a survey of the refugees' self-reliance activities, or something like that. The most fun part of it was to distribute live chickens and piglets to refugees who had taken part in the survey. It was a light moment, which we shared with them in an otherwise grim context of war, exile, tensions, and dispossession. But what that experience gave me was something far greater. It was a truly formative experience that helped solidify a set of values that I have carried with me to this day. Living alongside the refugees, understanding the dynamics of a refugee community, hearing and seeing the pain of their losses and the life in exile, inculcated in me the importance of the JRS mission to accompany, serve, and advocate on behalf of refugees and those forcibly displaced, to help and empower them, and to create as many opportunities as possible for them to seize. In my more than 30 years of refugee work since then, and now as the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, I have had the privilege and pleasure to encounter JRS teams and often work with them in many parts of the world, starting from Sudan, which was my first UN posting in the late 80s, and then in other countries in Africa, but also the Middle East, Asia, Europe, and throughout the Americas. I have seen the great work JRS and its partners do in responding to basic needs by enhancing education or in the crucial endeavor of promoting reconciliation. Dear friends, the COVID-19 pandemic has affected us all. It has made us vulnerable and put us at risk. It is, however, having a disproportionate impact on the most vulnerable, the refugees and the forcibly displaced among them, people without a home to stay safe in, people without water to wash their hands, or without the ability to keep a safe distance from others because simply there is no space or no shelter. And it is causing serious anguish and mental health issues that cannot go unsupported or unaddressed. It is for this reason that our work together, UNHCR and JRS, is more important and urgent than ever before. I'm grateful that we at UNHCR can continue to call JRS a close partner and friend in our refugee responses around the world. Dear friends, my volunteer experience in Thailand all those years ago taught me not only how to catch a runaway piglet, but to understand and absorb the important values which are the JRS guiding principles, and which underpin also so much of what all of us in the humanitarian and refugee community, and I personally do in our everyday work. It underlined the need for a commitment to other people, especially the most vulnerable, of communion with those who have different histories, cultures, and beliefs, of the fundamental importance of social justice as a foundation of peace. Thank you, dear friends and colleagues of the Jesuit Refugee Service, for all that I have learned from your work and for your long and strong friendship. I congratulate you all on your 40th anniversary and look forward to walking with you and refugees in fellowship for many years to come. Thank you.
I was born on the way to the nearest refugee camp in Uganda. My family had to flee South Sudan because of the war. A lot of people were killed, a lot of people were displaced. My family have been in a refugee camp for 25 years. I grew up there. This was my house up there. The best way I can describe being in a refugee camp is like being locked in a room alone. You actually don't know what is happening outside. For us as refugees, we didn't have that inspiration. And there were a lot of organizations giving us food to eat. The organization did give us clothes. But JRS was so different because it was focusing on education. I remember when JRS is going to distribute textbooks or uniform, that day we will all go to school because we really love books, we really want to be able to learn. It's more than just realizing your worth. Without education, you cannot understand who you are and what you can be able to bring to the world. JRS was able to inspire people to see the potential in them, and that's why my mother worked so hard to actually go and save money for 3 years to buy for me my first computer. She understands that education is important for me, and I would do anything to be able to learn. That moment really changed my life.
From living in a refugee camp to running his own business in Washington, D.C.
Lual Mayan.
Lual Mayan.
Please welcome Lual Mayan.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
A new video game that premiered today may be like none you've ever seen.
Right now, I'm a game designer, developer, and I'm the CEO of Janub Game. I want people to have empathy on refugees, for them to understand what they go through. I'm making Salam. It's a game that teach people about refugees. In the game, you have to take a refugee from a war-torn country to a peaceful environment. In the game, you have to buy food, you buy water, you buy medicine when your character is hard. You're actually buying somebody in a refugee camp those resources. I'm creating my foundation to be able to educate refugees with technology and building a technology center in Uganda, in the refugee camp that I grew up in. We can be anything we want to be as long as there's an opportunity for us. For refugees, that's something they yearn for. And when they find it, they don't let it go. Every single day, there is a refugee that is experiencing the same thing that I experienced 20 years ago. Hearing their stories is important, but telling them what they can be able to accomplish is a different thing. That's something that really JRS was able to do, to walk beside me and believe in me.